Hey, welcome to another podcast with NECKROOTS. I'm Kit James.
I'm Austin Davis.
And this one's exciting, guys. The title of this one is Your Past Does Not Equal Your Future. It sounds like common sense, but you know what? It's deeper than that. I don't think it is common sense, is it?
No, I think there's a ton to talk about here, Kit.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, we all make mistakes. We all go through hard times. We all go through misfortune, right? There's this big lie, this social media lie that, you know, some of us are on social media more than others. But as we look at that, you're seeing, you know, so-and-so, their family's always on vacation, always looks like they're having a good time, or they look like they've got their life put together and everything's always going well for them. And that's just not the case, man.
Right.
Nobody is immune to hard times. Nobody's immune to misfortune. We all go through it. And it's just, some of it's different than for some people than it is for others.
Yep.
And some of us have similar experiences, and that's just the way it is. And as I thought about this topic, the past, and you know, hard times, misfortune, trying to put all this together, something that came to my mind that I think is pretty critically important is that some of the things that happened to us in the past were in our control, and some of the things that happened to us in the past are out of our control.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, right, we make a choice as to who we are today, and I think we'll talk more about that as we get a little further into this episode. But just some thoughts to start us off here.
Yeah. So when you think about the title, your past doesn't equal your future. Well, obviously, right? I think we all know that. Deep down, everybody knows that. But the truth is, the underlying truth is, does it affect us? Yeah, it does. Right? Do those scars and bumps and bruises and pains and failures and hurts, do we take some of them with us into the future or try to? Yeah,
sure.
We do.
Yeah.
And they get heavy. So just when I thought about the subject, it obviously sounds like common sense, but we all know it's not. And the one thing I thought about is I like to study different people and personalities, and Walt Disney. Everybody knows Walt Disney, right? He's a legend.
Oh, sure.
Dude's a dreamer. He's a grinder, and he don't give up.
Built a huge empire, dude.
Right?
One of the most successful.
Yeah. And so just because it's relatable and we know him, I mean, he came from grassroots, you know. He came from humble beginnings, and we're not going to share the whole story, but I think what's interesting is he had a cartoon business that went bankrupt. He had several ventures that went bankrupt. He had a strained relationship with his father. He did not have a good relationship with his dad at all. And then everyone knows Mickey Mouse. And right after the creation of Mickey Mouse, he had a mental breakdown. I mean, he went through it.
Gosh, man, I had no idea.
Yeah, he lost his lead cartoonist, one of the best guys, to one of the competitors that got the bank to loan him some money. And the bank that he went to, I mean, he heard no from bankers 300 times on his ideas.
Gosh.
And his dreams.
Man.
And so you fast forward to the happiest place on earth, right, in Anaheim. And I mean, we've all heard of it if we haven't been there, right?
Yeah.
There's just a mob of people, and it's a cool place to visit. But when they opened that up in July of 1955, it was on a Sunday. It was a grand opening, and it wasn't that grand. And if you can just imagine that, I mean, he does everything grand, right?
No kidding.
That's what we think, right?
Yeah.
If he would have had social media, we wouldn't have seen any of the heartache or any of this. They didn't see any of it, right?
No.
You just see the grandiose, like what you said. So when they opened, they call it Black Sunday. All of his critics and all the media that showed up, I mean, they just hammered him for it because it was over 100 degrees, super hot. And the ladies that were out standing in line were standing on brand new asphalt. So it was, you know, getting a lot warmer than it was outside.
Radiating the heat.
Yeah, and holding the heat, and it was melting it was actually, I read the article, it was melting their high heels, right?
God.
And then, which, I mean, that is what it is. You can't control the weather, right?
Nope.
But once they got inside, the plumbers went on strike because he didn't pay them, right? And so none of the drinking fountains were working. So they couldn't go in and get a little drink and get hydrated.
Man, what a mess.
Yeah, it's a mess. And so, and then a lot of the rides weren't functioning properly. Mechanically, they weren't sound. I mean, it was just a train wreck. They blasted him in the media for it. And so all of these things, right? And there's more than that, but we're not going to go into it. It's just interesting to take that scope and look at Walt Disney, who he became, the empire he built, but where did he start?
Yeah.
And I can't help but look at that and go, you know what? He has a very keen, dedicated way of moving past his failures and understanding just to leave it in the past, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that, different parts of people's stories because they're so relatable. It's like when you go to Disneyland, you don't think of any of that.
No.
Right?
That doesn't even cross your mind.
It's all perfection. I mean, there's ain't a blade of grass that's out of,
It's true.
right?
Yeah.
So, but he must have been very disciplined in the way he dealt with challenges. And I think that's what we need to do, right? It worked back then. It works now. It's like, and we have a different challenge. Like you said, on social media, it looks like the fun bus just rolled into town and all your neighbors are on it. And so obviously comparing ourselves isn't good, but comparing our pasts and comparing our, you can't side by side nothing because we are where we are. We were dealt certain cards. Everyone was dealt a different hand of cards,
Yeah.
right? Nobody was dealt the same hand.
And nobody's hand is full of roses and rainbows.
Right. And it's how we play those cards, right?
Yeah.
So obviously I think everybody's dealing with this, and I'm talking to you right now who's listening. We know that those challenges and those struggles from the past, I mean, we have to understand those are things that we need to address, and some of them you need healing from. Don't get me wrong. Going back in the past to search for that healing and that comfort and trying to come to terms with the past, it's important, but it's also important to leave it, right?
Yeah.
To reference the past is one thing. To take up residency there, that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
Right.
What a great way to put it. And if this example that you used of Walt Disney kit, if anybody had an opportunity to become a product of their past, right? If Walt Disney hadn't of decided for himself that he wasn't going to be the 300 failures, or if he wasn't going to be this Black Sunday guy, right? If he had decided that that's who he was going to be, we wouldn't have a ton of the stuff that we have in the world today, and maybe the stuff that we enjoyed as kids, right? So he is somebody who had an opportunity to live in the past. He had a ton of opportunities, right, to let the past define who he was and then be a failure for the rest of his life, but he chose not to. And that kind of leads me into the question that came to my mind as I was thinking of this topic is, things happen to us in the past, right? And like I said, some things are in our control and some things are out of our control that happened to us in the past. Some things are worse than others, right? But who are we now? Right? Who is Walt Disney? Well, he's dead now, but, what is his legacy?
Yeah.
Right? So who is he now? Who are we now, NeckNation?
Yeah.
And maybe we're still going through it. Maybe we're still in the midst of making mistakes, or maybe we're still in the midst of misfortune, right? And we're battling through that. But choose who you're going to be today, and also choose who you're going to be, when this thing is over, if you're going through it right now, right? Who is this going to make you into? And don't let the past erode or take away from who you're trying to become or who you have become.
Yeah. And, knowing who you are, we need to say it every episode, and I think we need to say it more.
Oh, yeah.
Remembering your roots and knowing who you are is so vitally important to any forward progression and hope for the future, because it's just important. And not just who you are today, but who you want to become tomorrow too.
Yeah.
Right? And the other thing that Walt Disney said, after he was very tenacious and I mean, he persevered, period, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you've seen the end of the movie, right? I mean, he won, right? He pulled it off. But nothing stood in his way of his dreams, right?
Yeah.
Well, several things stood in his way, but he didn't let them stand in his way. And certainly he didn't pack baggage from past failures and difficulty and challenges and all those obstacles that he had to overcome. But when he was doing an interview later, and he turned that whole tragic grand opening around, the media was asking him questions. They're like, all the struggles that you've been through, Walt, and all these difficult things and obstacles, is there any piece of advice? I mean, why would you do it? Would you do it again? He goes, everything that I went through and everything that you're going through, you on the other side of the camera, I'm telling you right now, it will either make you or it'll break you. And he goes, and me, the strengths that I have and who I am today was a product of my past. He goes, I wouldn't trade that hand for anything else. It's what made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a good comment. And in his words, he said, every once in a while, whether we realize it or not, we need to be kicked in the teeth.
Yeah.
Right? And that's
what a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's one of his quotes. It's like, dude, sign me up. Yeah, kick me in the teeth. No, I mean, you don't want to, but guess what? If you're going to get kicked in the teeth, man, you better get a new set of pearly whites and find the positive and move on.
Yeah, no
right?
kidding. In fact, something that you said there just is really true, and that is that we don't have to be a product of the past, right? And that everybody goes through it. Everybody's going through hard times, and Walt Disney went through those hard times. And I love that you say that we all get to get kicked in the teeth every once in a while, and we've got to make that choice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And that is a choice. That right there, the only way I was thinking about this, just the title of today's podcast, it just seems like common sense. We know that our past doesn't equal our future. But we know what does equal our future, and that's our habits. And some of the things that have happened in the past, have they formed some of our daily doing habits? You know, have we been scared, or do we have experience here, or do we have fear here, here, or here because of our past, right?
Right.
Does that shape some of the habits that we're dealing with today on a daily basis? Those will definitely equal your future, right? But I started thinking about the past. I'm like, man, we talk about the past like it's a freaking destination, like it's a building that says past, right?
Right.
Bro, the past does not exist unless we invite it to the present.
That's true.
It does not exist.
Yeah.
Right? So it just pains me when I see, people living in the past. I got loved ones that live in the past, and dude, they just keep digging up the same body and the same body and the same body. Yeah. And it's like, you know what? Let's go dig somewhere else. Let's go just dig in the present.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that the only way the past has a life, and the only way the past can survive, and that's if we invite it to be with us in the present. So it really gives us the key. Knowing that we have the key, knowing that there's no big building that says past, the reflecting on the past. I mean, there's good memories, there's bad memories, there's hard memories. I think we're specifically talking about the challenges that may have scarred us, burdened us, or weighed us down as we move through the future. Right?
Yeah. Yep. One thing, so I kind of remembered what I was trying to say a little bit earlier, which is this whole idea of Walt Disney. He let the past. There was portions of the past that he let in, right? But it was for the good. Yeah. So if there's things in your past that you can learn from and that you can build on, and that they make you a stronger person today, that is great.
Right.
That's awesome. In fact, that goes along with, the episode that we did on overcoming failure, right? Which is let your failures build you, right. Overcome them, and then use them as a stepping stone to get to your successes. And he kind of did the same thing. These failures in his past were his stepping stone to his successes. And so same thing with us. Our mistakes, our hard times, our misfortune, things that happen to us that were in our control and out of our control, those can be stepping stones to help us become who we want. But if at any time we feel like living in the past is hindering us or keeping us from becoming who we need to be, or is somehow eroding who we have become as a result of those things, like you said, man, we got to bury it. We got to get rid of it. Yep.
And you know what? We know everybody lives in the past a little bit, right?
Yeah.
It just happens.
It does.
I mean, we do. And we do got to bury it, and we got to move forward. But I think that's the challenge. Subconsciously, even if we don't pay attention, and some people might be saying right now, I don't live in the past per se. Well, the reality is subconsciously, if you learned a hard lesson, or you felt a pain or some hurt or some, something, right, that affected you emotionally, that gets tucked away, and it does come with you, right? Yeah. And so it's important to talk, and it's important to process it, and it's important to break it down and say, the past doesn't exist, and how is this hindering me in moving forward into the future? It is very important.
Yeah.
So I think doing some, just going through those things and realizing, hey, we don't want to be a resident there, right?
No, we don't.
Because we can't. There is no there. But
yeah,
You
It's the
know,
past. It already
right.
happened. It's done. It's gone.
But you know what happens when we do relish or spend a lot of time in the past? It really robs from the present, right?
It does.
And the present is a powerful position,
Yeah, we've
right?
talked about this.
Yeah. So here's the present. It's kind of the focal point of, I mean, this is your future. What we're doing right now equals your future, right?
Yep.
And so if we want our future to look different, we need to make our right now look different. But that means how much time do we take the negativity of the past and bring it to rob from the present? Because it'll rob from the present, right?
Yep.
And so it gives us limited time to really live in the now and to prepare for the future. So it's critical. We do it without even thinking about it, right? We'll hang out in the past and talk about this or talk about that. And even if it's a good memory and you're mixing it up with friends, I mean, I got friends, dude, that are my age. They're 50 years old and they're still talking about, hey, you remember that one time when we were 16 or 17?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all right once in a while, right? It's good to remember those things, but bro, that's all they remember. I'm like, what happened between when you got out of high school and now?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know.
Or what cool experiences are you going to have tomorrow? I'm kind of reflecting on this right now for myself because I do a lot of, I guess what you would call reminiscing, right?
Yeah.
Of all these good times. And I'm like, well, hell, why don't I just create some good times for me tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Why can't something awesome happen tomorrow that I can talk about for the next, 20 years or keep making these cool things happen instead of
Yeah.
just having to reminisce about the good times in the past. Because there's plenty of opportunity
Right.
for good times to happen right now and tomorrow.
And that's the thing. It doesn't just have to be the bad in the past. I mean, if you talk about the good in the past as well, it's like, okay, let's get off the sideline, man, and get in the game, right?
Yeah.
Let's make that right a springboard for more adventures and more passion in living in life going forward. So,
Yeah.
but definitely the bottleneck in our future and us moving forward is hanging on to those things in the past. So, and I think it's important to talk about them because it requires healing. So I started thinking about it and I thought, what is it? I mean, there's things in my past that I had to heal from. I mean, I was bleeding on people that didn't cut me and I needed some healing. I did. I'll admit it. Right.
Yeah.
And it was rough, but healing, if you want to get a head start on healing from anything in the past, the number one thing you can do is take responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? Whether
Yep.
whether it should be in your bucket or it shouldn't be in your bucket, man, carry the bucket of water. Just take the responsibility. Say that's on me, and that's the quickest way to diffuse negativity or something that's holding you back from the past, right?
Yeah.
And get rid of it is just taking responsibility.
Yeah. And maybe not necessarily that the thing, like if something happened to you that was out of your control that has caused some kind of emotional damage, it's,
Yeah.
not taking responsibility as it's your fault, but taking responsibility as that is your situation.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
You carry that situation and that's okay.
Yep.
But it's not who you are. It doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have, you don't have to play that, that card
Yeah.
for the rest of your life.
Right. I mean, and that's when I say responsibility, that's a good point. We're talking about the responsibility, and what is in your control is what? How you deal with it.
Yeah.
Not exactly. I mean, things happen to us all the time out of our control. That's called life, right?
That's life, dude.
And it sucks sometimes.
Oh yeah.
But you know what? You find out how strong you are and how important you are and how impressed God is with you or your parents are or whoever or who's around you. When you go through those troubling times that you didn't have any control over, but you do have control over how they affect you, and you dig deep and you figure out who you are,
Yeah.
and you build from there, it just makes you that much stronger.
Yep.
Right.
That's
And
true. That's
it makes you like Walt, right?
Yeah.
Later in life. I mean, that not everything he did was it was in his control. Some of the things were, third party control, and he pitched it and they would say yay or nay. And
Yeah.
he had to process and deal with it and next face, next race. So to suit up and saddle up and go next face, next race, let's go. Right. It's hard. It's
It
harder. It's easy to say it, but it's harder to do it. And so the responsibility part is taking responsibility is really taking responsibility for our own happiness,
yeah.
right? If we're not happy with where we're at, then we take responsibility and go, what do I need to change? Maybe I need to freaking unload a few things out of my past, out of my backpack that don't belong in the present because they're slowing me down,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And just do an evaluation and dump them because our happiness is not up to anybody else. No matter what cards we've been dealt, it's up to us.
Yeah.
It's us and us alone, right?
Yep.
And so I looked I just wanted to know what the big book said.
Yeah. What does the big book say?
The big book. Well, I was like, what does the big book say about looking in the past, right? The Bible.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what God's eyes are on it. What's his views?
Yeah.
Because looking in the past is where we learn.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. So Luke chapter 9, and it says something about no one who puts something to this effect, right? A guy who puts his hand on the plow and looks in the past doesn't have a place in the kingdom of God.
Right.
Something along those lines, right?
Yeah. Luke 9:62. Yep, that's exactly what it says. So, yeah. So if we're not fit, right? If we're looking in the past while our hand on the plow says a lot of things. It says you're taking action, man.
Yeah.
Right. You're doing the work. You're doing what you got to do. Your head's down and the plow's in the ground.
Yeah.
Right. So don't look back, because what's it going to do? It's going to slow you down, and that plow's going to go crooked.
Exactly. And I think what everybody needs to realize, NeckNation, this is for all of us, Kit and I included. We say that every time, like we're all part of NeckNation, but we all have this. We all have the ability, and we all have the opportunity and the option to decide. I mean, we had a whole episode on I'll decide, right? And this is one of those times in your life where you need to decide, and you have the ability to decide. Nobody's got you handcuffed right now to your past. The only person handcuffing you to your past is you, right? So let it define what it needs to define, or let it strengthen you where it needs to strengthen you. But if it holds you back, dude, you got the key to those cuffs.
Yep.
Undo them.
Yep. Don't send out no more invitations to the past.
No,
right?
No more.
They're not welcome here unless they make you laugh anyways.
There you go, dude.
Or make you learn something.
Yeah.
So I think we covered that pretty good, and I've got a story.
Let's hear it.
It's about a little bird.
Story time.
Okay, story time. Let's hit it. So there was this bird, and she didn't have like a family of her own, right? She came from a family, but she didn't have a family of her own. And so she hung out with just kind of everybody in the forest and in the trees and other families and whatever. And so because she didn't remember a lot about her past, she was pretty, it was personal to her, right? Yeah. And so you've seen pet rocks, right? You had some when you were a kid, little pet rocks.
Dude.
You put the smiley face on it.
Right, yeah.
Well, she collected pet rocks. She didn't put no smiley face on it or make no Easter egg, but she would pick rocks up as she was flying. So she'd be out flying with the other birds, eating midges and, crickets and worms and on the ground, pulling worms out and bugs and whatever. And she did what all the other birds did. But when she was on the ground, she would pick up these rocks. And one of these birds said to her, they said, "What the freak are you doing picking up these rocks?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of dumb. You don't eat rocks." And she goes, "No, but they help me remember. I don't remember a lot about my past, and I just feel bad. And so I want to remember every moment. And so I pick up a rock for every one of my emotions and every one of my good moments and bad moments." Yeah. So she'd pick them up no matter what. And then she would she had a ritual every morning before they would go out and find midges and find food and fly in the rain and do their thing. She would sort out her rocks, and they were kind of her family, I think, right?
There you go.
And she would look at that rock, and she knew what that rock represented. And she'd laugh, with this rock as she would look at it and sort it out, and she would cry and feel the pain from this moment and of her past. And so, anyways, that was kind of her ritual, right? No big deal. Well, as time goes on, it started to become a big deal, because when a lot of time passes, what happens? You're picking up a lot of rocks.
Picking up a ton of rocks, man.
Yeah, so she's rock chucking this, for years of her life, and it's starting to slow her down, because number one, it takes a lot to sort those rocks, pick up those rocks, and she would carry them everywhere she went. So she was getting to where she couldn't fly because she had all these rocks and all this weight. She couldn't hunt with the other birds and fly as high and do the things that she used to be able to do.
Yeah.
And so they started giving her a hard time, not picking on her, but just, telling her, hey, those things are in the past, those rocks, those memories. Maybe you keep the good ones and get rid of the bad ones, or they're trying to help her, right?
Yeah.
Because she's not living. She's not going and doing what the other birds are doing. And as time went on and more rocks, and it takes more time to sort them, it becomes heavier and heavier. It impacted and affected her so much that she couldn't even walk on the ground to find worms or bugs, and she couldn't fly to get midges. And so she was really, her health was struggling, and she ended up eventually, right, the end of the movie is she died early. And the reason she died early is she was not willing to give up those past memories. She couldn't let them go. She just could not let those go no matter what. And so it cut a lot of, number one, her quality of life and her living short, as well as her life in general. Yeah. And so I think the real message and the real takeaway of today is there are things that are weighing us down. And there are some things that we can evaluate and say, you know what? I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to learn and burn. I'm going to let it go, man. Yeah. Right? I'm going to let go and let God, or I'm going to let go and let me just figure this out and learn from it, right? Yeah. And there's so many things in our past and even in our present that we have to take a hard look at and say, is this going to define me? Is it going to slow me down? Is it going to impact the quality of life? And am I going to lose the life in living because I'm inviting these things to come into my present and to affect the quality of life that I have right now in the present? So if we want to fly high and we want to shoot for the moon and do everything that we can to be better tomorrow than we are today, we got to freaking take some weight off, and we got to learn from the past, let it be a feather in our cap, not a rock in our backpack, and move on, keep trudging. Yeah, I love that, kid. What a great story. So NeckNation, let's make a commitment now, right? We talk about action. Action is so important. Big deal. So this is how you change your life, is by taking action. So do your evaluation. Who are you now? Is there things that happened to you in the past, or things that you maybe have done in the past that are holding you back? And if so, let's get rid of them. Let's keep the ones that we need. Let them build us up and make us who we are. But if there's things that are holding us back and keeping us from becoming, let's get rid of those. So if you like the content, if you like what you heard today, be sure to like this video. We got to have you like these videos, guys. The more you like these videos, the more people are able to see them. Subscribe to the channel. We come out with a video on Tuesdays for sure. We come out with the podcast every Tuesday, and then we're doing some neck shorts on Thursday. So check out the neck shorts, but subscribe so that you know when these things are coming onto your YouTube or onto your wherever you get your podcast feed. Also, we've got social media. We're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram. You can check us out there. But for now, we'll leave you with that. And bless up, NeckNation. Thanks for being with us. Make sure you can be a product of your past. Just don't be a prisoner of your past. Don't be a prisoner. Bless up. Bless up.